That watch costs $2.
It really does. It is
$125.
It is such a bad watch.
Ah.
I got him! I got him! I got him! I got him!
Check the...
Happening now on SportsCenter, a massive statement from the NHL. Tom Wilson has been suspended 20 games for an illegal check to the head on St. Louis's Oscar Sundqvist. It's Wilson's fourth career suspension. Craig Button will be by with more on this just a little bit later on in the show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It is opening night. I'm Corey Warren. Welcome to SportsCenter. The NHL opening its season on 4 fronts tonight, including in Toronto, where the Leafs will play host to the Montreal Canadiens. And that's where we find Mark Masters today. And Mark, apart from all the hype and anticipation surrounding this team, the season opens with a dash of uncertainty over William Nylander's status and what that might signal going forward.
That's right, Corey. Now, Brendan Shanahan doesn't do a lot of media availabilities, but today, with William Nylander about to miss time in the regular season, the Maple Leafs president spoke out, and his message likely wasn't just directed at Nylander, but also to a couple other young stars, Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, who are entering the final year of their entry-level contracts.
When I get together with some of my old mates, you know, from the Cup years in Detroit, we talk about winning together and growing together, and that's what we remember looking back. And you know, at the end of the day, we all found a way to fit with each other so that we could keep adding to the group. And that's obviously what we are asking some of our young leaders to do. There's a lot of other voices, and understandably so. And like I said, it's not for everyone, and we're well financially. But it wasn't his responsibility to set a new bar or to please other people with other interests. He's a hockey player. He wanted to come here and win hockey games. He wanted to be treated fairly, and he is. And yes, that is what we hope for and expect from our players as we go forward. We're big fans of William. We want William to be a part of this, but obviously this is a process that he needs to go through.
Now joined by TSN hockey insider Darren Dreger. Dregs, what did you make of Shanahan's comments?
Well, interesting in theory, no question about that, but unrealistic as well. And I suppose somewhat fitting coming from the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, you know, if you want to look back to Shanahan's days with the Detroit Red Wings, for the most part, you're talking about a pre-salary cap era. And the Red Wings back then spent a fair bit of money. Obviously, Willie Nylander did not get the memo from Brendan Shanahan because he should be entered in as Exhibit A here. Obviously doesn't have a contract, so he did not report to training camp, not in the preseason, and he won't be in the lineup for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Comes to the Nylander situation?
Doesn't appear that there is. Doesn't sound like there's much of any dialogue that's happening between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the William Nylander camp. And look, either side needs, you know, something to happen in terms of a caving point. I'm sure that Nylander and his family back in Sweden, you know, not hoping from a teammate perspective that the Leafs stumble out of the gate, but that might help their cause. Conversely, the Toronto Maple Leafs obviously are gunning for a quick start to this regular season, and if they get off to that quick start, then maybe that might alleviate some of the pressure to buckle from that perspective. But I do not get the sense that the Toronto Maple Leafs are in a position yet where they're feeling the angst or willing to step away from their position of having dug in.
Well, you're looking for pressure points. NHL players paid by the day, so starting today moving forward, Nylander could be giving up anywhere between $20,000 to $40,000 depending on what his salary ends up being. Corey?
All right, thank you, Mark. As mentioned off the top of the show, Tom Wilson has been suspended 20 games for his hit to the head of Oscar Sundqvist. Wilson received a match penalty on the play. He had an in-person hearing earlier today. It's the fourth suspension of his career. And joined now by Craig Button. So it's a 20-game suspension for Tom Wilson of the Washington Capitals. Did the NHL get this one right?
Absolutely, they did. I love the fact that they came down hard on Tom Wilson. And people might say, oh, it's 20 games. No, 20 games is appropriate. Maybe Tom Wilson should look at it and go, maybe I got a little bit lucky considering he is a repeat offender. You know, one of the interesting things, Corey, is I keep hearing about how Oscar Sundqvist had his head down and he had to be responsible. Wrong, wrong, wrong on all accounts. The only perpetrator in this is Tommy Wilson. And it doesn't matter if Oscar Sundqvist comes through the middle, if he has a blindfold on or whatnot. This is totally on Tom Wilson. He's paying the big price. And when you consider how short a time it is since his last significant suspension, this is a message not only to Tommy Wilson, but to the rest of the league. Good on the NHL for getting it, in my view, not only appropriate, but sending that strong message.
Talk about paying a big price. $1.26 million he will sacrifice in salary, not eligible to come back until November 21st against the Chicago Blackhawks. Craig Button. So Tom Wilson's suspension is the third suspension of 20 games or more for an on-ice incident since the start of the 15-16 season. It's the fourth suspension of Wilson's career. He played just 12 playoff games and 3 preseason games since his last suspension. He's coming off a career season where he scored 14 goals and 21 assists. Thomas Plekanec and Carl Alzner are healthy scratches for Montreal tonight against the Leafs. For Alzner, it ends a consecutive streak of 622 games, which is the fourth longest active streak in the league. He's also in the second year of a 5-year deal that pays over $23 million. Plekanec is currently 2 games shy of hitting 1,000 for his career.
They're never easy decisions. I think it's pretty obvious that there's 2 things happening there to those players, but at the end of the day, I think we're all mandated to do what's best for team first, and doesn't mean we don't sympathize with certain things, but at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for, including those players.
Well, not only was Alzner's streak the 4th longest active streak in the NHL, it was the 12th longest all-time. Alzner has not missed a single game since the 2009-10 season. He averaged over 20 minutes per game for the Habs last season. Meantime, the man between the pipes, Carey Price, continues to be a big piece of the puzzle for Montreal. With more, here's Jamie McLennan.
He's #1 on the planet when healthy. And the #1 thing he needs to do this season is stay healthy.
It's good to get back into it and start getting reads again. And still some rust, but feeling good so far.
Carey Price has only played 60 games once over the last 3 seasons. And he's coming off an injury-shortened campaign that also happened to be the worst of his career statistically.
Just relax. Just chill out.
But for me, this is less about Price bouncing back personally and more about the Habs bouncing back around him. Price doesn't get in trouble too often, but when he does, it's because he tries to do too much, and the team can help him in that regard. If the system in front of him holds up, we should see Price get back to his dominant self, elite demeanor, positioning, and explosiveness, because the guy just doesn't have any weaknesses. Bottom line, Price is always under pressure to perform in Montreal, and this season won't be any different since it's year 1 of his 8-year mega deal. But for the best goalie in the world, it's always been more about economic motion on the ice instead of economics off it. Big save by Carey Price.
All right, coming up, it's not the start he envisioned. Find out how many games Brady Tkachuk is expected to miss, and see what led Patrick Laine to say this about the Vancouver Canucks.
I think they just needed something to play after last year.
Having the right truck gives you the confidence to know you've got what it takes to get the job done. With the F-150's best-in-class capabilities and ultimate combination of military-grade aluminum alloy and high-strength steel, you're ready for anything. Tough, smart, capable. That's F-150.
We have a lot of teachers in the family, but when I was younger, I never thought I would be a teacher. The reason I like to teach is to build personality and, like, make good people and people who don't litter or people who care about one another. But the problem is you never really make that much money. Everyone's always like, oh, you have so much time off. Where are you going to go? And I'm like, I don't have any money to go anywhere because I'm a teacher. The irony.
Get your coupon at MrLube.com.
Sports Center is brought to you by CTV's Magnum PI. Say aloha to your favorite Hawaiian PI and get into the crew, the cars, and a new Higgins. Magnum PI, streaming Monday on CTV.
Payback, baby. Payback. Y'all want to make it about a logo? It is what it is. But it's going down today at 4 o'clock.
Moments ago, before the coin flip, they couldn't even do it at center field because the Tiger Cats were protecting their logo.
It don't matter. I'm a savage. Either way it goes. Sniper game, baby. The underdog's on top, man. You not even playing there. You talking. Shut up.
Masole, easy touchdown for Brandon Banks.
Y'all never been that tough. Y'all ain't never had that in you.
Scores touchdown again. Brandon Banks again.
Tell the BC line, don't ever disrespect the hard-working, hard-nosed Steel Town or disrespect the longest sports history logo in sports franchise history. Don't ever disrespect us unless you're going to come in here and win.
Well, Week 17 of the CFL kicks off with a Friday night football matchup between Matt Nichols and the Bombers against the East Division leading Red Blacks. It begins at 7:30 Eastern Time. On Saturday, the Argos are in BC. You can see it at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. And then on Monday, it's a Thanksgiving Day doubleheader. It begins with Johnny Manziel and the Alouettes hosting the league best Stampeders at 12:30 Eastern, followed by the Eskimos and the Rough Riders. Well, back to hockey, and Brady Tkachuk's NHL debut will have to wait. This year's 4th overall pick has been ruled out of the Sens season opener tomorrow against the Blackhawks because of a mild groin strain. Guy Boucher says that he's hopeful Tkachuk will play Saturday against the Maple Leafs.
It's definitely is tough. It was a game I was really looking forward to, but at the end of the day, don't want to push it. It's one game, and rather be cautious and take it day by day than try to force and be out even longer.
Well, even the Hanson brothers brought their toys on the road, but it's now forbidden in Vancouver. There will be no Fortnite on the road this year, which caught the attention of Patrick Laine of the Winnipeg Jets, whose unflattering comments didn't go overlooked in Vancouver. Farhan Lalji has more.
On the eve of the start of the NHL's regular season, the Vancouver Canucks made some interesting news off the ice when newly minted alternate captain Bo Horvat confirmed to TSN Radio in Vancouver that the Canucks would not be allowing their players to bring their video game systems with them on the road. It's become a growing practice amongst professional athletes across North America, and this was not a coach's decision, but rather one that was made by the Players' Leadership Council. And it didn't take long for the news to make its way around the sports world. Patrick Laine of the Jets was asked about the possibility of that happening in his locker room. He dismissed it and took the time to fire some shots.
That's a terrible idea. I agree with you, Rosie. I think they just needed something to play after last year.
I'm not going to worry about what he said, honestly. It's just something that we feel we can, go to team dinners more and come together as a group more on the road. So, we feel that's something that we should do, and I think we definitely don't mind it. Just don't bring your counsel on the road and get with the guys and have dinner.
It was just an idea for our group to be a tight-knit group. We want to change the culture. We want, we want everybody to come together and act as a team. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I mean, can't wait for the home opener tonight, and that's we got a hockey game to play, so I'm not going to be worried about a video game.
I've never played video games on game day. I've never brought it on the road, but I play at home. I don't think guys play on the road here really much. If they did, it was on a long 16-day road trip. You're not going to go for dinner with the guys every night anyways. So if you want to watch a movie, I don't really see a difference. As long as you're being a pro and you're getting your sleep and you're ready to go the next morning, I don't see an issue.
It will not be a problem. Of course, I like to play it, but
well, on our road trips, we were there to play games, not to play football. So I have no problem with that.
One wonders what this story would look like, if it would even be a story, if the Sedin twins were still here in Vancouver. And as this Canuck team transitions into a much younger group, they're looking for a much more old-school way to continue to team build. But regardless of what the Canucks do, don't expect this to become a trend among professional athletes, as video games are here to stay. Farhan Lalji, TSN, Vancouver.
All right, straight ahead, we'll go back to Toronto. We'll go one-on-one with Nazem Kadri, who's enjoying the Leafs' newfound respect around the league. Plus, it's been almost 2 years since his last fight in the Octagon, how Conor McGregor will fare against Khabib in UFC 229.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Eastside Marrio's Build Your Own 3-course Italian dinner event. Available for dine-in, pickup, and delivery, but only for a limited time.
Big win, boys? Yeah! Now, who's pumped for the fantasy season? Yeah! Good.
Boys, I forgot to sign up.
What? Are you serious, bud?
You can't be serious, bud.
Smitty, you've royally screwed up the league, bud.
Flo's looking good, though.
TSN Fantasy Hockey is back. Presented by Head & Shoulders. When in doubt, don't doubt.
One and only completely redesigned Jetta with available Beats Audio. Fun start.
Life can be busy. And sometimes it's the little things we rely on that help us feel prepared. You count on soft and strong facial tissue. Strong paper towels that stand up to the toughest messes. And bathroom tissue that's plush and thick. You can trust Royale products to deliver quality throughout your home. There's a Royale for every room. Kim Crawford, undo ordinary.
I'm the doctor. When people need help, I never refuse. Let's get a shift on.
Doctor Who, global premiere, Sunday at 1:45 p.m. on Space. Free preview on now.
Well, we are 90 minutes away from puck drop at Scotiabank Arena as the Maple Leafs get set for their season opener against Montreal. The moment that fans have been waiting for since July 1st, John Tavares making his much-anticipated Maple Leafs debut. And back with our hockey analyst, Dave Poulin. And Jake Gardiner was really stuck in this spin cycle in Game 7 last year when the Leafs bowed out to the Bruins. He was accountable. He took responsibility for his actions in that game. But there's so many big expectations for the Leafs this year. And when you look at the back end, are the additions of Travis Dermott and Igor Oshiganov enough to make them a Stanley Cup contender?
If they play like they can play at their best. And there's so many great examples for the Leafs of the way they can skate, the way they're mobile, their puck retrievals. This is Morgan Rielly, simple up. And I'm going to put a lot of pressure here on this elite group of forwards to work hard to get back and get in position. Because if you get forwards or defensemen like Jake Gardiner, like Morgan Rielly, going back, using their skating ability, Zaitsev, head up, little indirects in the neutral zone. But this is too, not just on the D, but on the forwards. Now, the late addition of Travis Dermott and his skating ability adds just another dimension. We haven't seen it as much from Oshiganov just because we haven't seen as big a body work from him. When they get in trouble, it's unforced errors like this. The pressure comes back on Jake Gardiner in this case, and when they get swarmed and they get running around in their own end, that's when it magnifies that the defense has issues. But team defense falls to everyone. It's not just the defensemen. It is the forwards as well. And I'm going to put pressure on this elite group of forwards to help your D out and let them do what they can do so well.
Well, they'll get their first test tonight. Dave Poulin, our NHL analyst.
When you watch Kadri play, when you notice he's at his best, it's when he's stirring the pot a little bit, when he's under the skin of an opponent. He's such a rat.
Might be under the microscope, but no questions about the Leafs' goal-scoring abilities. The Leafs have 3 of the 8 highest-scoring centers in the NHL over the past 2 seasons. This trio has combined to score 203 goals over the last 2 years. Austin Matthews, John Tavares, and Nazem Kadri each scoring at least 30 goals last year. With more, here's Darren Dreger and Kadri.
Well, Nazem, you survived another NHL preseason. No big surprise there. But how much do you look forward to Game 1 of the regular season? The fact that you've got a different lineup and that rivalry against the Montreal Canadiens.
You always look forward to it. I mean, as a professional athlete, you just, you want games to matter and you want them to mean something. So it's always exciting looking forward to this game and playing Montreal
a bit and measure your expectation as you go through the regular season.
Well, I think a little bit of both. I mean, having that healthy balance is important. You kind of got to, take it for what it is and, have fun with the, that you're starting to get the respect of your peers and your teammates and coworkers. So I think that part of it's nice, but at the same time, we can't overplay this. We got to just relax and worry about the first one.
Finally, can we measure this year by any other standard other than going beyond the first round of the playoffs?
Well, I think that's what's expected. I mean, the expectations are higher, and we expect more out of ourselves now that we've kind of crawl before you run, so to speak. So I think just being eliminated in the first round the last 2 years, they've been great series, and that experience we're going to take with us. But we're certainly going to our ultimate goal is to win that Stanley Cup.
Well, Saturday night, Conor McGregor is back. McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov headline UFC 229. You add it all up, Conor's status, Khabib's record, and the bad blood between the two, and it's being touted as one of the biggest fights ever in UFC history. And if there was any thought that a 2-year absence might have affected McGregor's popularity, well, think again, as his supporters were lining up early this morning. Just seen anything from it?
So it's like watching when you go to the horse races and you see the horses trot out, and you want to look, are they muscular, are they confident, do they have that, that swagger to them? And that's what we're looking for with Conor McGregor. Yeah, we want to see how his left hand looks and how he's moving, but it's really about that cocksure nature of him. His chest out, that swagger. That's what we're looking for. It's been 2 years since he's fought MMA. We want to see if that's there, because if that's there, or when that's there, he is so tough to deal with.
Okay, Conor always fought like he needed the money, but he got a huge payday from pretty boy Floyd. Do you expect him to be any different going into this fight?
So, Dutch, you made $7 million last year, did you? He did not.
Economy unto himself. The Irish are here. His fans are here. They lined up early this morning to try and get ready to get a glimpse of him at these open workouts, and we'll have much more on the later editions of SportsCenter.
Well, Conor McGregor's return to the Octagon headlines this Saturday's pay-per-view event from Las Vegas. But first, you can watch the prelims on TSN 5 at 7 Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific time. All right, when SportsCenter returns with one of the league's best backs out Sunday, we'll tell you who to snag as a replacement in fantasy.
Big win, boys? Yeah! Now, who's pumped for the fantasy season? Yeah! Good.
Boys, I forgot to sign up.
What? Are you serious, bud?
You can't be serious, bud.
Smitty, you've royally screwed up the league, bud.
Flo's looking good, though.
TSN Fantasy Hockey is back. Presented by Head & Shoulders. When in doubt, don't doubt.
There's nothing faster than light. Fiber optic uses light to deliver the internet.
Get that 649 feeling. The next Lotto 649 jackpot is an estimated $40 million, plus the guaranteed $1 million prize.
I have a tremendous amount of pent-up anger inside me.
I always thought the devil was just a metaphor.
You have no idea what's happening here, do you?
The only
thing that stops a bad man with a gun is a good boy with a gun.
What a lift he could provide for this New England offense.
Streaming Monday on CTV.
All right, time now for fantasy. And with news today that Leonard Fournette is out for Sunday's game against the Chiefs, that makes TJ Yeldon a must-own and must-start. Last week against the Jets, he put up 20 points in standard scoring and is going against a Kansas City rush defense that is 28th in the league in yards allowed and 27th in the league in rushing touchdowns allowed. And if you need a D for this weekend, then look no further than the Titans. They're up against a Bills team that is second last in the NFL in points scored at just 12.5 a game and fifth in the league in giveaways with 7 in just 3 games. The Titans are the most added defense in fantasy, so you'll need to act quickly to pick them up. All right, here's a look at what's coming up on the 6 o'clock Eastern edition of SportsCenter. We will have more on the Tom Wilson suspension. Leafs and Habs will get it.
Thursday Night Football on CTV2 and TSN.
Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. It's National Random Acts of Poetry Day, Tony. What you got for us?
Roses are red, violets are blue. Why is it your Cubs can never score 2?
Because sometimes they don't score 0. They don't score 1. They stop. They just stop. They don't even get to 1. Last night, 1, but other nights, 0.
It was so painful for me last night to realize you were right.
What's up?
You know, you were completely right. 13
about the Cubs.
13
every game.
Stop.
Those analytics dopes.
Welcome to PTI. Life is done, having lost 2 consecutive 1 games at home. Wilbon, as you survey the wreckage of your team, do the Cubs have major problems or just minor ones?
I think there's several minor ones, and I'll start with the 40-game suspension that Major League Baseball has doled out to Addison Russell, starting shortstop, all-star at least, I guess, 1 time for domestic abuse. He will miss the first 40 games. Self-explanatory. I think they'll try to trade him nonetheless. But, Tony, the problems we have involve very specific people. You, Darvish, who didn't post. I mean, he spent like $140 million. He's not there, $120 million. Brandon Morrow, the Dodgers closer that we had, was great in the first third, injured, wasn't there. So we were missing him. Chris Bryant missed 61 games. With those guys out, those are 3 of your 7 most important players on the team. We still won 94 games. Now, I'll say this. Bryce Harper is now in this
out of this mix, and I'm still going to say that if I look at your team, the Cubs, and my team, the Nats, I prefer your players, with the exception of Scherzer, Soto, and Robles, and Turner, and Anthony Rendon.
That's 5 guys.
Here are people that you put up. This is the thing that amazes me, that you don't score. You have Rizzo, you have Bryant, you have Schwarber, you have Baez, you have Contreras, you have Zobrist. I don't know how it's possible that this happened.
Part of it. Tony, they played like 51 games in 53 days because of rainouts and snowouts. And I told you in August, this is going to kill this team. They never recovered. They were leading the National League in runs scored. They wound up finishing 4th, which sounds okay. But, Tony, part of it is the approach to hitting.
Until the last day.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do about hitting. Tony, they have a terrible approach. I know they're 5th in walks, but they don't seem to value getting on base and moving runners. And I think that's analytics knuckleheads.
The problem with the Nats became a problem for the Cubs this year, and that is relief pitching. You can't go anywhere without relief pitching. You can dress.
Our closer was hurt.
You can dress your entire team in pajamas for a road trip, but if you don't have relief pitching, you're not winning.
Did you hear me mention Brandon Morrow at the top?
I understand that. Well,
you got to have
happens.
It does. So you're saying they got no problems?
I'm saying the problems are minor. I'm saying they led the league in wins. They're minor problems.
They're not on I-95, of course. And the only people paying attention to them are people like me, Cub fans. Tony, Milwaukee looks loaded, and they have the best record in the National League now. What kind of chance do you give the Rockies to beat them?
So let's look at the Rockies' recent circumstance. On Sunday, they were in the Mountain Time Zone closing out their season against the Nats.
Yeah.
On Monday, they were in the Pacific Time Zone, right?
Dodgers.
Playing the Dodgers. Yeah. On Tuesday, they were in the Central Time Zone going 13 innings against the Cubs, a game that ended Wednesday.
Yeah.
And now, tomorrow, they're in Milwaukee playing the early game if you ask me what I think Major League Baseball does not want the Rockies to advance. That's what I think.
I think that's a complete just exaggeration. They're already in the Central Time Zone. They got a day off. They got on the bus last night, and they probably went to the Pfister Hotel, and they slept. It's an hour-and-a-half drive. That's the traffic on the Beltway in Washington. It takes you to get to the office. So
This
what are you talking
entire
about?
postseason in the National League was set up for the Cubs to win and to advance. And without the Cubs, without the big city Cubs, the big draw Cubs, I think baseball's hurt. I think they're...
His bullpen, which he does in the National League more often, and he has to make double switches and go lefty-righty percentage switches. He's got a ton of guys in that dugout he can go to.
I will just say...
And a bullpen which is superior.
Arenado, Story, and Blackmon, okay? That is 104 homers and 288 RBIs.
Yeah,
so
last night.
if you beat them, you've beaten a very fine middle of the order. Okay. All right. Major League Baseball commissioned and endorsed a TV commercial for personal exuberance, a commercial that appealed to its players and fans to reject the old stuffy rules that so many play by. Let's watch.
They said rules are rules. Don't stop and stare.
Cross that bat 30 feet into the air.
Don't flip your bat. Respect the jersey. He didn't earn that right. They called him unprofessional. No celebrating. Keep your head down. Flashy, immature, showboat. They said it all. No more talk. Let the kids play.
Wilbon, do you expect these unwritten rules to now change?
No, not overnight. I thought the coolest part of the commercial was Ken Griffey Jr.
Of course you did.
Being in the back of it. I mean, I love Ken Griffey Jr.
I know.
And I think it was good to have a player of Ken Griffey Jr.'s elite Hall of Fame nature. It is, but many of the people who rail against it are outside that culture. I don't expect it to change overnight.
So let's get to this. There is a racial and cultural underpinning to all of this.
It says be tolerant.
Because many of the bat flippers have been Latin. And that created an enmity against them, born many times by American-born players. This is baseball saying the following. Hey, about 30% of our players are Latin. They come from a different culture than we do. We've got to make room for them. We've got to be more tolerant of them. Or as they say in Stripes, lighten up, Francis. This is a very important thing that is going on. I think these things can be changed. There is an unwritten rule that will never be changed. That is, if you throw at my player, I'm throwing at your player, because that's not Latin or black or white. That's baseball.
There's pushback. And when its race is involved, even a little bit,
there's
greater pushback. All I got to do is say the word school busing.
I don't know how you define quickly. I think it is inevitable it will change, and this will be accelerated by this commercial. Hope you're right. Baseball putting its weight behind.
I'm a little more skeptical than you are, but I hope you're right. And I hope Rob Manfred is right about it.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Wisconsin and talk about cheeseheads again. This time the Packers. In an unlikely disagreement, perhaps? Aaron Rodgers lit into the specifics of the Packers' offensive approach Sunday in a shutout victory of Buffalo. Rodgers said, quote, "We were championship defensive level, non-playoff team offensive level today. We need to find ways to get our playmakers in position to get some opportunities," close quote. Mike McCarthy conceded as much and said, quote, "When I closed my door last night and watched the game, I felt like we left a lot out there," close quote. Tony, Rodgers versus McCarthy. Big deal, little deal, no deal.
It is a little deal if it's any deal, because Aaron Rodgers has won, because Mike McCarthy has said that you're right at this point. Look, you can go out in an hour and get somebody to coach that team. You can't go out. He said, we didn't do what we're supposed to do. Little deal.
This reminds me of a phrase that you and I are very familiar with because of a boss we once worked for and the way he made his operation run. It's creative tension. Okay? Not only
Benjamin
is creative tension,
Bradley.
That's right. Not only is creative tension not bad, it's required for teams that actually go in, mix it up, exchange ideas, get better, and then win. Aaron Rodgers knows he needed to say it. He needed to say it publicly, and Mike McCarthy needed to listen. And now you've had that happen. I expect the Packers to be better off for this.
Aaron Rodgers is 34 now. He's got a contract that takes him till he's 39. He's the most valuable piece of property in the NFL. Mike McCarthy knows that one of the reasons he has coached there for now in his 13th year, much of that is Aaron Rodgers and his talent. So if they don't get along, you don't want Belichick.
But a little
Brady
tension
now.
is good. A little tension. This kind of tension is good. By the way, is Patrick Mahomes the heir apparent?
He looks great. We've said that. The Washington Capitals, he's got that strange voice though. The Washington Capitals will raise their Stanley Cup banner tonight. There will be outdoor watch parties all over the city, Washington, D.C. We will have the game on at Chatter, thank you. After so many years of playoff disappointment, Alex Ovechkin was dominating in 4 straight series. Well, about only 2 teams in almost 30 years have repeated as champions, the Penguins and the Red Wings. Will the Caps make it 3?
There's some wild card things here at work, Tony. This new coach, Todd Reardon, who you and I wouldn't know if you're walking here wearing a Capitals sweater.
Don't know him.
Okay, so you have a new coach. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? New energy. You can't be stale when you have a new coach. And what distinguishes the 85 Bears? They're the 85 Bears, not the 86, 7, 8, or 9 Bears.
That's right.
And Ovechkin was my Ditka. I mean, the cup and drink and party flowed.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It was. I've lived in Washington now, as you have, for almost 40 years. This was the most surprising and gratifying win that any team has had because it was so unexpected and it made people so happy and they shared in it. And I'm not going to go to the Cubs with 108 years, but this was a long time. The Capitals had never won. 40. I think if they won 20 games this year, people would be okay.
No.
They're so happy that they won it all. And Ovechkin and Backstrom are 33 and 30, which is pretty old. And the thing you mentioned, Barry Trotz just quit. He just walked game with relievers. We'll ask a man who'll be in the booth, Ron Darling.
We'll also ask him if Chris Sale's drop in velocity is really due to mechanics instead of injury.
When do you remember a championship coach just simply quitting? I'm done.
There's got to be something.
I'm going.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Philips One Blade. Shape and shave any length of hair. Innovation and you. Philips.
I finally figured out what car to get. Now, where to find the best deal?
You know, why don't I help?
What's that?
Car Gurus. Color?
Silver. Car Gurus?
Low miles, 2 grand below market value, 5-star dealer rating. Ooh, I'm beat.
Let's do it your way, then.
I heard that.
Go to Car Gurus today to find great deals from top-rated dealers near you.
We won! Get that 649 feeling. The next Lotto 649 jackpot is an estimated $40 million, plus the guaranteed $1 million prize.
On my way to the pros, I wore my Bauer skates lots of places, but I only got them at one.
From beginner to pro, we'll put you in the right gear for your game at the right price. Source for Sports. We know our stuff. For a championship ride, every detail has to hold together in perfect balance. The best seem to be born knowing that. Alberta, if you know rye whiskey, you already know that.
So my doctor tells me all-brand multigrain crunch cereal with psyllium fiber helps lower cholesterol. Who knew?
I knew.
It was so easy to add to my diet.
Knew that too.
You should try it. Oh.
All brand. Start simple.